few things came up in nearly every one of the interviews I did, which also surprised me. The first of those was the value of hard work. I can't think of a single person I interviewed who didn't tell me that working hard is a value they learned as children and is central to their identity. Work means dignity and independence and autonomy and pride. It means having something no one can take away from you, even when work is scarce, even when the conditions aren't ideal. The Marxist view of work as inherently exploitative, something people would ideally be freed from, has taken on new life on the American left as well as the free market right with ideas like universal basic income. But the working class Americans I spoke to over the past year didn't view work as exploitative. They viewed the value of hard work through an almost spiritual lens, as though it were a precious inheritance that continued to connect them with their parents, who as children they saw getting up every morning and going out to provide for their families. It is essential to how they see themselves as Americans, and a great source of pride, no matter what they did for a living. The flip side of the dignity of work is the impatience that most of the people I spoke to have for people they view as choosing not to work and living off government benefits, and the corresponding inability of working families to get the little help they need, which would make their lives so much less stressful. No one I spoke to wanted to live off the government, temporarily or permanently. They didn't think big government was the answer and spoke frequently about government waste and welfare fraud, things they saw a lot of firsthand. What they did want was a system that rewarded those who work hard, who still can't get a foothold in the middle class. As for who could get them there, I found a deep distrust of both political parties. The Democrats were seen as the party of the educated elites and the dependent poor, the party behind the mechanism that conveyed their hard-earned tax dollars to people defrauding the system. But the Republicans were seen as the party of the rich, the party of corporations, the side pimping out the working class to achieve the goals of conservative elites. The majority of the people I spoke to have views that don't fit with either party. Whether liberal or conservative, most people I spoke to supported significantly limiting immigration, but also majorly expanding access to health care. They supported gay marriage and were very pro-gay, but also very worried about the spread of transgender ideology, especially the spread in schools. They were anti-woke, but it wasn't a topic they thought about a lot. Instead, they thought a lot about housing and why they couldn't afford it. An extreme moderation, tolerance, and practicality threaded itself through their views. For example, I heard often from women that they personally opposed abortion, but they could understand why someone would get one, and they were very much against the idea of banning it. Most of all, the people I spoke to across the board were appalled at the divisiveness of our politics when they themselves were part of such a politically, ideologically, racially, and religiously diverse world. Working-class Americans simply don't have the luxury of hating people for their political beliefs, nor do they have the appetite for it. Every person I interviewed for this book had a unique story and perspective. The stories I ended up including in what follows reflect people whose circumstances seem to me to represent a larger piece of the puzzle in the portrait I was trying to paint of the working class. In part one, you will hear extensively from working class Americans in their own words. In part two, you will hear their quotes intermingled with those of experts and my own analysis. I am deeply grateful to everyone who shared his or her story with me for this book. Some names and identifying features have been changed to maintain anonymity for people who feared they would lose their jobs. I also committed a journalistic crime and paid some of the respondents for their time, which is common for academics but a big no-no for journalists. I just couldn't bring myself to ask people whose only asset is their time to give it to me for free. In fact, lots of the subjects in this book became friends, another big journalistic taboo. I was constantly aware of my own immense privilege while speaking to people whose lives are so much harder than mine, and in more ways than one, I couldn't help but try to do more than most journalists consider prudent. I admit to you my sins so you can judge them for yourself before proceeding. Part 1. Who is the American working class? Introduction to Part 1. The roads are black and empty at 4:15 in the morning when Gord McGill sets out for what will be a 13-hour workday in his truck. It's early summer in upstate New York, and up in the sky, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn have taken to lining up in a neat little formation running from one side of